The incident is sending shockwaves across the world, causing His Holiness to issue an apology to his 19 million followers on Twitter.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at 10 dark facts you didn't know about major world religious leaders.
There was just this continuous stream of seductions. I mean, he didn't even hide it in those days.
For this list, we'll be looking at lesser-known controversies involving significant figures from multiple major religions. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Pope Urban II provides justification for centuries of slaughter.
On that day, the Pope would make a speech. A speech that would be the starting point of 2 centuries of bloodshed.
Pope Urban II is best known for getting the ball rolling on the Crusades.
And what Urban did was very clever. Rather than just ask them to go and fight for the East, he also asked them to go all the way to Jerusalem to restore the lands that had been taken by Muslims.
The response is amazing.
In 1095, he spoke at the Council of Clermont. He codified the Catholic Church's new doctrine of holy war, or bellum sacrum. Before then, rulers, even Christian kings, could find all kinds of material justifications for war. But as of 1095, the church representing the Prince of Peace could rubber stamp war. At Clermont, Urban launched the first crusade to conquer Jerusalem. For the next 200 years, boys and men from all over Europe traveled to a foreign land to earn their way into heaven with violence. Swami Primananda was a convicted murderer. Prem Kumar was born in Sri Lanka and at a young age became drawn to spiritual life. He became a guru, adopting the name of Swami Primananda, traveling the world. His ashram in Sri Lanka burned to the ground during ethnic riots in 1983, so he fled to India. He only grew in popularity until 1994. One of the girls at the ashram claimed that Primananda forced himself on her and several others, some of whom were underage. He allegedly used his position and promises of miracle cures to coerce them all. Another resident named Rabbi was allegedly murdered and buried on the ashram grounds. After a circus of a trial, he was convicted in 1997 and died in prison, maintaining his innocence. Jim Bakker was/is a corrupt televangelist. Jim Bakker, with his program The PTL Club, was a trailblazer of televangelism.
Well, we want to thank all of you that have made that phone call to become a faith partner with PTL, and I say thank you.
In the 1970s and 1980s, he became a fixture for white evangelical Christians in the United States. Bakker's ministry seemed to be on an unstoppable rise until its swift collapse in 1987. Hush money payments to the church secretary were discovered, meant to cover up an extramarital assault. Investigators soon discovered years of accounting fraud.
In 1978, the Charlotte Observer started publishing articles about the misuse of PTL funds. It sparked a 5-year-long FCC investigation.
Bakker was charged and convicted of multiple felonies and went to prison. He lost both his marriage to Tammy Faye Bakker and his ministry. After his release, Bakker remarried and returned to the small screen with his new church. Unfortunately, he didn't leave controversy behind him. In 2020, Bakker was accused of selling fake treatments for COVID-19.
It's one of those things you kind of say, well, God, is this a joke? Or
Rabbi Yisrael Goldstein committed multi-million-dollar fraud schemes. Unlike many religious institutions, Judaism doesn't necessarily have a central governing body. It's a relatively small and decentralized religion with community leaders often wielding significant institutional power. One such leader, Rabbi Yisrael Goldstein, led the Chabad organization in Poway, California. 1 year after getting wounded in a hate crime shooting, Rabbi Goldstein pleaded guilty to tax and wire fraud.
One of the most notable instances was taking donations from conspirators to claim tax deductions, and that money would then be funneled back to the donors while also taking a portion for himself.
In 2020, Rabbi Goldstein was convicted for misusing over $6 million in contributions and donations. According to the DOJ, the rabbi and 5 co-conspirators spent decades skimming and laundering money through his synagogue.
Goldstein also deceptively obtained matching contributions from Fortune 500 companies, as well as made bogus claims to FEMA and other emergency services agencies to pad his pockets.
In 2022, he was sentenced to 14 months in custody and to pay back millions in restitution.
Before sentencing, the rabbi begged for mercy, stating, "I stand here today, my head bowed in shame, remorseful and disappointed in the crimes that I have committed to God and mankind."
Primananda is a fraudster and sexual harasser. James Donald Walters was a white American who converted to Hinduism in 1948. He became a direct disciple of a popular religious leader. Eventually, Walters adopted the name of Kriyananda and founded his own worldwide spiritual movement, Ananda.
Just come to God. Become one with Him. Realize His light. Realize His joy. Realize Om.
He wrote hundreds of books and pamphlets published in 28 languages, selling millions of copies. He lectured around the world and spoke multiple languages. He was also found guilty of fraud in Palo Alto, California in 1998 during a sexual harassment lawsuit. Primananda portrayed himself as a celibate religious leader despite 3 decades of using his position to exploit several female devotees.
May we be your instruments, of love and joy. Om. Peace. Amen.
He was also embroiled in a 12-year lawsuit for infringing upon the copyright of his mentor. Pope Urban VI was a torturer. Pope Urban VI was a complex figure. He spent his papacy at odds with powerful figures both within the church and without. The rift grew into a major 40-year schism in the Roman Catholic Church. On the one hand, Urban was at odds with a number of powerful cardinals because he hated their greed and corruption. He forbade them from accepting gifts, meaning bribes from rulers, nobles, and merchants. On the other hand, he dealt with those cardinals with abject cruelty. He learned that 6 of them were conspiring to depose him, so he had them all arrested. The 6 cardinals were then brutally tortured and executed. According to legend, Pope Urban VI complained that their pain screaming was not loud enough. Rabbi Walter Homolka covered up abuse. In 2022, a German law firm famous for investigating child mistreatment within the Catholic Church set their sights on the largest Jewish organization in Germany. Rabbi Walter Homolka founded Germany's non-Orthodox rabbinical schools, the Reform Abraham Geiger College and the conservative Zacharias Frankel College at the University of Potsdam. He had to give up control when allegations began to surface. Homolka's husband allegedly sent lewd messages to students and relied on Homolka to cover it up. According to reporting, the head rabbi established an atmosphere of fear, threatening to eradicate anyone who opposed him. It's the biggest scandal to rock German Jewry since World War II. Pope John XII was a murderous Casanova. The list of misdeeds that follow the legacy of Pope John XII would require its own top 20 video. While some may stem from anti-Catholic sources 1,000 years ago, one thing is abundantly clear. Giving a teenager untrammeled power is a recipe for disaster. John XII was made Prince of Rome before eventually ascending to the papacy around age 20. His reign was marked by one alleged depravity after another, with his palace described as a brothel by contemporaries. He was accused of repeatedly forcing himself on multiple women, including his own sisters. John supposedly at one point seduced a widow by giving her control of several Italian cities. He led Rome to ruin, invited invasion, and was eventually killed by a lover's husband. Sogal Rinpoche accused of abuse. Sogal Rinpoche was a Tibetan Dzogchen Lama. In Tibetan Buddhism, lamas are a little bit more than a spiritual leader. They are oftentimes recognized to be reincarnated leaders from the past. That was the case with Sogal Rinpoche. He was recognized as the reincarnation of a 19th century visionary saint who once taught the Dalai Lama. As the world has come to learn the hard way, even saints can sin. A $10 million suit was filed against Sogal Rinpoche in 1994. He was accused of leveraging his position and spiritual weight to induce his female students into physical relationships. He was accused of inflicting emotional distress and physical battery.
The way he described it was that he felt like a rock star and that this is how Trungpa lived. And he said exactly that he wanted what Trungpa had created, that he wanted to create something just like that.
While the suit was settled out of court, even the Dalai Lama acknowledged the man's disgrace.
My very good friend, but he disgraced. So some of his own sort of student now publicly sort of.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Cardinal law and the Church's cover-up. The Catholic Church has spent decades rocked by scandals all over the world. Multiple popes oversaw the systemic cover-up of abusive priests.
There was a moment for me when I realized that the story was going to be much, much bigger than any of us thought.
In 2002, the Boston Globe Spotlight team cracked the Boston branch of the scandal wide open. Cardinal Law had used his political power to cover up the actions of dozens of priests for decades.
The thousands of documents, once confidential, both illustrated and underlined the mistake and tragedy.
They were shuffled around from diocese to conceal their crimes. Though Cardinal Law was forced to step down, he was rewarded by Pope John Paul II with an appointment to Rome. The scandal is ongoing. In 2023, the Illinois Attorney General announced the results of an investigation into another massive conspiracy.
The totality of the Spotlight reporting and the impact it had, at first here in Boston, then the concentric circles leading out nationwide and globally, became irrefutable.